Welcome back for another deep dive with us. We're going to be talking about something pretty fascinating today. Um, the connection between diet and autism. Now, of course, there's no cure for autism, but so many people are exploring these dietary approaches to maybe manage some of the symptoms.
Yeah.
And the article we have today really dives into just that. It looks at how our food choices could impact someone with ASD. It even highlights some specific foods that might be helpful, and it even mentions some that are commonly reported to be problematic.
Right.
So consider this deep dive like your starting point, okay? This isn't about some rigid meal plan. This is about possibilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just giving you a foundation to kind of explore this connection between what you eat and autism.
Okay. So the article really focuses on this gut-brain connection, and I have to say, it always kind of blows my mind how what's going on in our stomach can actually send signals all the way to the brain.
Right.
Can you unpack this a little, especially for someone who's maybe living with ASD?
Yeah. It really is kind of mind-blowing, this connection. It all boils down to something called the gut microbiome.
Hmm.
So think of it as like this huge city of bacteria just living in our digestive tract.
Wow.
And it's not just digesting food, this community of bacteria.
Hmm.
It's constantly talking to our brains. It can influence everything from our behavior to our mood.
It's wild.
And here's where it gets really interesting for people with autism. You see a lot of individuals with ASD, they experience digestive issues, right?
Right.
So this gut-brain connection is super important. Like it's a two-way street.
Mm.
If you support gut health, it could have a huge impact on brain-related symptoms.
I love that. The two-way street. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that impact the brain, this article talks about omega-3 fatty acids. They even call them a brain food superstar in here.
Yeah.
And we all know about fish oil, of course, but are there other ways to get those omega-3s, especially for someone who might not love seafood?
Yeah, for sure. So you've got chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts. They're all plant-based sources of omega-3s.
Great options.
But it's not just about getting them in your diet, right? It's about how they actually work, how they do their thing in the brain.
Exactly. Break it down for us.
Okay, so think of omega-3s as like the building blocks for brain cells. Like
Yeah.
they're essential for how those cells are structured and how they talk to each other.
Okay.
They've also got anti-inflammatory properties.
Right.
Right. And, inflammation in the brain has been linked to all sorts of neurological and behavioral issues.
Oh,
So by making sure you're getting enough omega-3s, you're basically giving your brain the tools it needs to work its best.
okay. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. So since we're talking about gut health, the article also mentions probiotics and prebiotics. I'm curious about their role, especially since, we were just talking about how digestive issues are so common with ASD.
Right. Yeah, they are key players when it comes to gut health. Everyone's talking about gut bacteria these days. Well, probiotics are like the good guys in that world.
Mm.
They help keep things balanced and healthy in your gut microbiome. And prebiotics, well, they're like the food that keeps those good bacteria happy and thriving.
So let's get practical here. What are some easy ways someone could add these into their diet?
Sure. Well, yogurt, as long as it's got live cultures, it's a great source of probiotics. You've also got kefir.
Okay.
And for prebiotics, think bananas, onions, garlic, even asparagus.
Ah.
So easy. Like, just imagine pairing a yogurt with a banana for breakfast. Boom.
Yeah.
You've got your probiotics and prebiotics all in one.
I love it. That's a combo I can definitely get behind.
Easy, right?
Now, we've all heard about eating the rainbow when it comes to fruits and veggies, but I want to go a little deeper.
Yeah.
The article says there's a connection between those bright colors and managing autism symptoms. How so?
It's the antioxidants. Those colorful fruits and veggies, they're packed with them. And the interesting thing is the link between antioxidants and inflammation.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about omega-3s and how they're anti-inflammatory?
Yeah.
Antioxidants do something similar. They help protect our cells from damage, which can lead to inflammation.
So more color on our plates equals less inflammation in our bodies.
Exactly. It's like a visual reminder to prioritize those nutrient-rich foods that support, overall health,
Yeah.
which would be super beneficial for people with ASD.
I love that. So simple, eat the rainbow, but so much science behind it.
I know, right?
Okay. The article also talks about high-quality protein, especially for brain development, and something called neurotransmitter function.
Yes.
What are neurotransmitters, and how does protein even fit into this?
Okay. So imagine neurotransmitters are like these tiny little messengers zipping around your brain, delivering important information.
Yeah.
They're responsible for everything from your mood to how you sleep to your ability to focus.
Wow. Tiny messengers.
I know, it's pretty amazing. Now, here's where protein comes in. A lot of these neurotransmitters are actually made from amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein.
Okay.
So if you get enough high-quality protein, your brain has what it needs to make these essential messengers.
So which protein sources should we be eating?
Well, the article lists some great ones: chicken, turkey, grass-fed beef, eggs,
Hmm.
and there's also plant-based options like lentils, quinoa, tofu.
Nice. Lots of options.
It's really about having variety. And I want you, the listener, to think about your own protein intake. Are you getting enough? Could you try some new sources? Maybe focus on better quality. It's something to think about.
I love how you brought the listener right in there. That's great.
Yeah.
Now, this next one was really interesting to me. Magnesium.
Yeah,
The article says it could help with anxiety and sleep issues.
right.
And let's be real, those are concerns for so many people, not just those with ASD.
For sure.
So what's the science behind this relaxation mineral?
Well, magnesium is really important in regulating neurotransmitters, ones that are involved in relaxing and sleeping. It's like a natural chill pill for your brain.
Love it.
But it doesn't just stop there.
Yeah.
It can also relax your muscles,
Yeah.
which can ease tension, and that helps you feel calmer overall.
Okay, so where can we find this magical magnesium?
Okay, so good sources are pumpkin seeds, almonds, avocados. You've also got leafy greens.
Okay.
And here's a fun fact: dark chocolate, in moderation of course, is a source of magnesium too.
Okay, so healthy eating doesn't have to be boring.
Exactly. You can still enjoy yourself. You can indulge a little while still focusing on good choices.
Now, a topic that often comes up when we talk about autism and diet is the gluten-free, casein-free diet, or GFCF.
Yes.
It's in the article, but we want to be careful how we talk about this one.
Absolutely.
Because the research on GFCF is still kind of, up in the air. It's not a cure-all by any means.
Right, yeah. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution for sure.
Mm.
But it is interesting. So gluten, the protein in wheat, and casein, the protein in dairy, they might actually make symptoms worse for some people with autism.
So why would that be?
Well, the thinking is that in some cases, these proteins can trigger an immune response or mess with the gut microbiome.
Okay.
And remember that gut-brain connection. So any disruption there could affect brain function and behavior.
Makes sense. So it sounds like we need more research to really know how it all works, but the article does mention some possible benefits, at least for certain people.
Yeah, it does. But it's important to remember that this isn't saying everyone with autism needs to avoid gluten and casein, okay?
Right.
It's more about recognizing that these sensitivities exist. So getting rid of or reducing these proteins might help some people, but it's not a universal solution. You really need to work with a doctor or dietitian who can guide you and figure out if it's right for you.
Yeah, that personalized approach seems to be a recurring theme here, which makes sense because ASD is so diverse, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding what works for each person.
Now, speaking of individual needs, the article talks about vitamin D. I know it's essential for everyone, but it seems like it could be especially important for people with ASD.
Yeah. Vitamin D is such a multitasker. It's so important for brain function, for a healthy immune system, even for mood regulation.
Right.
The fascinating thing is our bodies can actually make vitamin D from sunlight,
Oh, wow.
but so many of us don't get enough sun, especially at certain times of year or if you live in certain places.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm totally guilty of that myself, especially in the winter.
Yeah,
But it sounds like there are foods with vitamin D too, right?
for sure. Fatty fish like salmon and tuna are great. Eggs too.
Okay.
And a lot of milk and non-dairy milk alternatives are fortified with vitamin D. So even if you're not out in the sun all the time, you can still get a boost.
That's good to know. It actually makes me wonder how many of us actually know our vitamin D levels. It's not something that's usually checked, but maybe it should be, especially with this possible link to ASD.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's definitely worth talking to your doctor about. Being proactive and really taking charge of your health, especially when there's a chance to maybe make a difference with those brain-related symptoms.
Okay, so we've talked about foods that might help people with ASD, and I'm taking notes over here like crazy. But the article also talks about some things to be aware of, things to maybe limit or avoid.
Mm.
And processed foods are at the top of that list. Why is that?
Well, processed foods often get a bad rap, and for good reason. They're usually full of artificial ingredients, added sugar, unhealthy fats, and honestly, they're not very nutritious.
So the article links these processed foods to possible behavioral issues, which is especially important when we're talking about ASD, right?
Right. But I want to be clear, this isn't just for people with autism. We should all be trying to cut down on processed foods.
Mhm.
It's about choosing whole, unprocessed foods as much as possible.
So it's really about overall health and well-being more than any specific condition.
Exactly. It's about making choices that are good for your body and your mind, no matter who you are.
Now we've already touched on gluten and casein, but there's another category their article mentions: food additives and preservatives. There are just so many out there.
I know, right?
It can be so overwhelming to try to keep track of them all.
It's true. And the tricky part is that some people are more sensitive to certain additives than others.
So the article gives some examples of additives that might be problematic for some people with ASD,
Mhm.
things like MSG, nitrates, and artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, those are definitely some of the more common ones. But the main takeaway here is to just be aware of what's in your food,
Yeah.
read those labels, and try to choose things with fewer additive if you can.
So another example of how personalized this all is: what might bother one person won't even faze another.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to talk to a healthcare professional who can help you make a plan that works for you. A plan that takes into account your needs, your sensitivities, your preferences. They can help you figure out this whole world of food and nutrition and make good choices for your well-being.
This has been such a great deep dive. We've covered so much: the gut-brain connection, the power of omega-3s, magnesium, probiotics, prebiotics, even some dietary things to watch out for. It's a lot to
I
process.
know, it's a lot, right? But hopefully you're starting to see how it all connects.
Yeah.
It's not about curing autism. It's about how our food choices can maybe help manage symptoms, support overall health, and just improve quality of life.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how the article emphasizes the importance of learning more, and talking to healthcare professionals. It's like a reminder that this is a journey. There's always more to discover.
Yeah, for sure. That's what's so cool about it. We're learning more and more all the time about our bodies and how they interact with the world.
Yeah.
And as we understand those connections better, we can make better choices.
I have to say, I'm inspired to take a closer look at my own diet after this.
That's great. It's all about small steps. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just try incorporating a couple new things. Experiment a bit and see how you feel.
So true. It's all about finding what works for you. But before we wrap up this fascinating exploration of diet and autism, I want to leave our listener with something to think about. We've talked about some known dietary connections, but could there be others out there that we haven't even discovered yet?
Hmm, that's a great question. And it really shows just how complex autism is and how much more we need to learn. It's exciting to think about the possibilities, what we might discover in the future that could help people with ASD and their families.
It definitely makes you think about the power of food, how much we can maybe impact our health and well-being through what we eat.
It's true, food is so much more than just fuel. It's information for our bodies. It can affect our mood, our energy, even how well our brains work.
And when we talk about something as complex as autism, there's clearly no one easy answer, no magic bullet.
Exactly. But by looking into these dietary connections, we're opening up possibilities. We're giving people more tools to manage their symptoms and have better lives.
And in the end, isn't that what matters most? Empowering people and families, giving them knowledge, options, and hope.
You said it perfectly. That's what it's all about.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
It was great sharing this with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for being here with us. We encourage you to keep learning about this topic, keep asking questions, and keep advocating for the best possible care for yourself or your loved ones. Until next time, keep diving deep.
And that brings us to another thing that can cause problems. Too much sugar.
Oh, yeah.
We know sugar gives us that quick energy boost,
Yeah.
but then often there's a crash afterward. And those ups and downs can really affect our mood, our focus, our behavior.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially for people with ASD who might already have those sensory sensitivities or, challenges with emotional regulation. Those sugar highs and lows, they can be really hard to deal with.
Exactly. So it's about being mindful of those added sugars in your diet
Yeah.
and choosing naturally sweet foods when you can. Things like fruit, dates, even a bit of honey or maple syrup if you need a sweetener.
Okay.
Now, we talked about gluten and casein, but there's another category the article mentions: food additives and preservatives.
Right, and there are so many of them.
Oh, I know.
It can feel like a lot trying to keep up with all of them.
It is. And the thing is, some people are just more sensitive to certain additives than others.
So the article lists a few additives that could be an issue for some people with ASD: MSG, nitrates, artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, those are definitely some common ones. But the key is just being aware of what's in your trade.
Right.
Read the labels, and if you can, choose products with fewer additives.
So it's like another example of how this is all so individual. One person might not bother another at all?
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to talk to, a doctor or a dietitian who can help you come up with a plan that's just for you. Taking into account your specific needs and sensitivities, what you like and dislike, they can really help you navigate this world of food and make choices that are good for you.
This has been so interesting. I feel like we've covered so much. The gut-brain connection, omega-3s, magnesium, probiotics, and prebiotics. We've even talked about some things to be careful about in our diet. It's a lot to take
It
in.
is. It's a lot, right. But hopefully you're starting to see the big picture. It's not about curing autism. It's about understanding how our food choices can maybe, help manage some of those symptoms, support our overall health, improve quality of life.
Yeah, and I like how the article really encourages us to keep learning and to talk to those healthcare professionals, to get guidance. It's a good reminder that this is an ongoing thing. There's always more to discover.
That's what's so exciting about it. We're constantly learning more and more about our bodies and how they work with everything around us. And the more we understand those connections, the better choices we can make.
I have to say I'm feeling pretty inspired to take a closer look at my own diet.
That's fantastic. And remember, small steps, you don't have to change everything all at once. Just try one or two new things, see what happens, see how you feel.
Yeah, you're right. It's about finding what works for you. But before we wrap up this amazing exploration of diet and autism, I want to leave our listener with a question to think about. We've talked about some dietary